Part 3, domain and range. So guys, we're going to talk about relations. Now relations are just sets of x's and y's. So sets of points, sets of coordinates, however you set it up. So this is a relation. These are a set of points that are being graphed together. This is a table of a set of points. This is actually the graph of the set of points. And this is called a map, mapping of points, okay? So all of these are relations. They're identifying sets of x's and y's. Now, the first thing we're going to be able to do is identify the domain and range of these problems. So for example, domain. A really quick explanation. Guys, domain is x and range is y. So the x values are part of the domain and the y values are part of the range. So for this problem right here, for domain, all right? For domain, the numbers would be -2, 0, 1, and 3. That is the domain. The range would be -3. That's the first one I see. Then 1, then 3, and then 4. Generally, they like to put them in order, which is why I put the negatives first and work my way up. But guys, that's domain and range. Right here in this table, the domain, sorry about that. The domain is -1, 0, 2, and 4. Notice, sorry, you can't see that. Notice that I didn't repeat the 2. The 2 shows up only once in the list. The range, -2, 0, 1, 3, 5. That is my range. Okay? And you just keep doing that. Just keep identifying domain and range. Here, the domain. I look at the x-axis. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. That's the domain. The range. Let's see, starting with the lowest, -1 with the y values, right? -1, -1/2, 0, 1, 2. That's my range. And then for the map, they're already put in order. So this one's really easy, guys. The domain is the first circle, -3, 4, and 6. And then the range is the other circle, 0, 2, 4, 5. And guys, that's domain and range. Now, there is one more question we have to talk about with these, and it's which of these are functions? Now, functions is talking about every x value only has one y that it's connected to. So the way I think about it is in every pair, is the x being faithful? Does that x only have this partner? Is it staying faithful or is it cheating? Is it staying faithful or is it cheating? You want the x only to have one y. You want it to be faithful. So for the first one, each one has its own partner. A is a function. This is a function. Okay, here, one partner, this is right here. 2, the number 2 shows up twice with 2 different partners. Now, if it was the same number twice, so if they were both -2s or both 5s, it would be a function. But because the number 2 has 2 different pairs, this is not a function. Okay, again, you can look at the coordinates here, but there's actually another way to do it with a graph. You can do something called the vertical line test. And the vertical line test says if you draw vertical lines all the way across, how many points are there on each line? 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So how many partners does x have at -2? One partner. How many partners here? One partner. How many partners does it have? One partner every time. So C is a function with the vertical line test. Now, if there was another point, let's say right here, and when I did the vertical line test right here, oh, the number 1 has 2 points, it has 2 partners, this would not be a function. Okay? So just be aware of that. Okay, letter D. So -3 is 2, 4 has 0, and 4, oh, there you go. 4 has 2 partners, so D is not a function. Okay, so that's the rule for functions using the x values and the y values. Now, when it comes to graphs, okay, when it comes to graphing information, like this is a savings account with an interest rate. So that means the money is growing, not because they're putting more money in the account, but because the interest rate is growing the amount of money. Now, this graph is a function, and this is called a discrete graph. Now, the reason it's discrete is because the points are not connected. The reason is you don't get money in between the months. It takes a month to earn that interest. So after a month, that interest will show up in the bank account. After another month, more interest. After another month, more interest. And that's usually how a savings account works. So you would not connect the dots here, because if I connected the dots, I'm saying every day the money is growing. That's not the case. The money is not growing every day. It grows at the end of the month, and then again at the end of the month. So that's what I would call a discrete graph. Now, if you're looking at a tree that's growing out in the woods, when it's first planted and it just starts sprouting, you would connect the dots here. Now, you don't see any dots, but guys, this is a collection of dots. This is the height every day, every hour, every minute, every second. We are measuring the height of that tree, and we see that that tree is growing. This is continuous. And I hope I spelled that correct. But these graphs are continuous, and it is also a function. So they are both functions, but they're just different ways of showing them on a graph. Okay? So guys, that's the rule for domain and range and for functions. Actually, one more thing I should add here. If I asked you to give me the domain and the range here, like what is the domain and range? Instead of giving me every single number, for the domain, I would say for the x values, the domain is all numbers greater than 0. So I would say this. That's my domain. I'm not using any negative numbers because we're measuring the height of the tree over time. There's never negative height. Now for range we're using this. It would be, I'm not going to put all the points that I'm listed on here. Instead, for the range, what I would say is when y is greater than 0. So as the tree is growing, it has height, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's all the numbers I would have for the y values of this. So sometimes domain and range uses inequalities instead of listing every single point. Now you couldn't do that with this because it's a set of points for the 5 months. This you would have to use the way we did before. What are those coordinates? What are the domain and range? So just be aware of that.